Good morning and welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke. A minute late today, but I had some fussing around that I had to do when I got up today. I hope you're all having a good morning. It is, again, the weather is quite nice out. I'm realizing I didn't shut a window over here, so I'm hoping outdoor noise isn't too loud. But the weather has been nice. It's still kind of foggy, so that gives a little bit of humidity to the air. But we've had some beautiful sunrises and colorful skies and things again, which is what I like, which is what I look for early in the morning. So we are at Sunday, right? This is Sunday the 11th of August. And yeah, it's been a rather busy last few days. I do have a Rouhani session that I'm doing today in the afternoon in my house. And I think I have another one next week. My Rouhani sessions do book up pretty fast, so if you actually want to do Rouhani with me during the week, again, remotely, and I have to tell you that I actually now had some testimonials from people. I've sent it out to a bunch of people, so if you happen to be one of the people that I sent a request for feedback and you haven't given it to me yet, some of them, like the first form I sent out, I didn't ask for a name, so I couldn't tell. I know at least one person who came from the initial feedback, but the first person, I'm not sure who it was. So I have to. I'm probably going to resend an email about getting Rouhani feedback because, as I said, if I want to move to level 2 practitioner, and what that means basically is that I can attune other people to Rouhani and I can teach it. Is basically what the difference is. Then I can, in order for me to do that, I actually have to. In order for me to do that, I have to have testimonials. Plus, I just want testimonials for the business. I just want to be able to tell people what other people's experience. I can tell you how great Rouhani is, but it's good when other people also tell you how great their experience with Rouhani is. Within the limits of what they want to share. So I'm going to be. So I may be resending an email to certain people, and if you are somebody who already gave me feedback and I'm resending it to you, apologies, because there's just one person who I'm not sure if they sent me feedback or not, because I didn't get a name on it. So anyway, but I think I've gotten, last time I checked, I think I've sent to 11 or 12 people and I've only gotten 3 back. So that's why I mention it again. But Rouhani has been very, very busy for me this summer, which is great. I love doing it. I love being able to experience it while also being able to help other people with that and allow people to experience what that's, that heart opening. And as we've talked about multiple times on this live stream, heart opening can sometimes be, we think, wow, opening the heart, that sounds like just like a really nice, beautiful thing. And it is. But if we've had a lot of pain that's caused us to close our heart, then that's something you have to take into account when you're doing it, because generally it means that we're facing those things that have made us close our heart in the past. Okay, so I don't know if I'm going to be talking to myself entirely this time, because I think it was Joanne had said yesterday that she didn't get notified. Like right now it's saying, we're telling your followers that you've started a live video. And I wonder, it is Mercury retrograde, so I don't know if perhaps IG is not letting people know that this is what's going on, or it could just be this is a day that a lot of people are very busy. Nonetheless, there was a topic that came up today that, it's kind of been something that's been on my mind. I was doing readings for the week. I'm going to have Aries through Virgo up on Monday. I'm on schedule to do that, so I plan to do, I've already done Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and today I'm going to do Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. I'm going to do those and post those to the site. I've kind of already pulled everything into production. I have one that I have to edit because it's kind of a weird spot where I blanked out. Like I was like trying to say, you did stop me trying to like, I've done it on this live stream occasionally. Like suddenly my brain will just be like, no words for you. And then, so I forget what I'm saying. But, so I don't like to leave that kind of stuff in. I want to edit that out. So yeah, this is just one video that I have to edit so far. And, of course, there's stuff I'm working on for the school. I think I spent all day Saturday working on school stuff. So yesterday, I had, maybe it was Friday that I did that. Yesterday I was basically doing my house cleaning, because, again, if I'm going to have clients in, I want to have a clean house anyway, right? But I like to work in a space that's clean. If my space is dirty, I find that I can't work in it. So I did that yesterday, and I've also doing some prep, and I'm preparing for the Chiron class as well. Now that's going to be next Saturday, the 17th. So if you want to join me for that, I'm trying to keep these kinds of classes very inexpensive so that they're not prohibitive for people to join. Because I haven't had a whole lot of money this summer, and I don't feel like I'm the only person who's in that boat. So I want people to be able to take classes or take as many as they want. The school is shaping up it's going to be something like a full semester will be $600 is what it's shaping up to be. But I am going to start a Kickstarter where I'm going to be probably asking for about $4,000 up front, because I figured out that's what the expenses are going to be. And most of that is going to be paying faculty, because right now there's going to be 4, and that includes myself, because I'm also going to be doing all the admin, all the tech support, all that kind of stuff too. Because it's not going to be, because yes, they're going to present a 2-hour lecture. The way it's going to work is each week there's going to be a 2-hour lecture. There's going to be a seminar the following week on that lecture. So if there's any reading material, anything anyone needs to do in between, they can do that and then join the seminar next week. Now the $600 tuition covers 8 weeks, and then it covers a project that is also going to be overseen or vetted by a faculty member. And again, this is why, because the faculty that I'm bringing on are all people who have full course loads. I know at least one of them, she often ends up with like 200 students a semester, per class, like she has those big classes. And I just know the other instructors, one of them we work in the same place, the other we got our degree in the same place. Good morning, Joanne. Good. I was just talking about it. I said, I wonder if it told anybody that we're on today, but yeah, so I was just talking about the school. Good morning, Hall. It's you and me right now. It is Sunday. I mean, people are sleeping in, and I completely appreciate that. I had a hard time waking up today. I'm not going to lie. But, okay. I was just, no, I just looked. Oh, okay. You just looked, so in other words, it didn't notify you. Interesting. Okay. It still has this little note up here that says, we're telling your followers that you started a video. I just think Instagram's lying. But anyway, it's funny. They always want you. I think it was another friend of mine who's on here was like, you want me to create reels and you want me to do live streams, but then it's like you don't show them to anybody. So, wither Instagram, right? So, anyway. I'm sure like the regular people though will, if they want to join, they'll find it. Okay, so it was, so what was I talking about? I was talking about the school that I'm starting. It's a school, I right now I'm toying around with names. I have not gotten replies from people. I have to go back and look at my mail to see if anybody gave any other feedback, because people thought like Interdisciplinary Center for Study of Feminine Myth was too long, too much of a mouthful. And thought, can we go back to something simpler? So right now what I'm toying with, and I'm still going to call this a working name and may not be the final name, but I'm looking at Muse's Sanctuary as kind of the name for this. And then saying, School of Feminine Myth, something like that. And I'm thinking of it as a sanctuary because it's a sanctuary from the normal rigors of higher ed, which usually have some kind of corporate end to them. But like I said, I was just talking about how the semesters are going to be $600 because it's going to be, and now people can take individual lectures, but it's going to be more because again, I've got people who I've got faculty I have to pay. There's admin that has to be done. So, and of course I've got to up my Zoom so that there's enough features for everybody to use. That's really what that comes down to. It's not even necessarily about crowd size, because again, the top level one allows like 300 people on, or at least the top that's been offered to me. So it would be 8 weeks of lecture. Well, actually 4 lectures. Every other week is going to be seminar. So in other words, the person will give a lecture. They may give like a reading list, or they may give reading material. And then the next week, it's going to be like, okay, let's get together and discuss this. Okay, so it's going to be that kind of a thing. And then at the end of that 8 weeks, the way I have it structured right now is I think Joanna Madlock would be on first, and she'd be talking about Baba Yaga. The second week, I think, is Dr. Kate Kinsbury, and she's going to be talking about La Llorona. And this is going to be about re-imaging feminine myth. And then Max Orsini's going to be, he's the literature guy, or literature and music guy, really. And he's going to be talking about Anne Sexton's Transformations. He might be talking about Diane de Prima's Loba, which is supposed to be a feminine integration kind of poem. And, oh, that's what's running through the yard. There's this weird little dog running through the yards. I think somebody's dog is loose. Anyway, fortunately, he's not in a dangerous place. Yeah. So anyway, it was, and I'm going to be talking about Hecate and Persephone as myths of feminine initiation. So those are going to be the 4 lectures that have been established for this semester, and the 4 topics. And the certificate at the end would be, like kind of reworking feminine myth. I forget exactly how I phrased it, but it would be part 1, and part 2 is going to be in the spring semester, where we're going to have a whole new batch of lectures. But at the end of that semester, there's going to be a project, so people can either they can do a paper, they can do a piece of fiction, they can do poetry, they can do they can do a piece of music, they can do a piece of art, whatever they want to do, because we have people who can critically, when I say critically, I don't mean like, oh, they're going to rip it apart kind of thing, but people who can look at it and give some kind of feedback, because this is ultimately not a graded school. Ultimately, the only way to not get the certificate is not to complete the work. So hopefully it's just, because the idea is that the person, because this is one of those things, and again, that's why I didn't want to name like Catonia U or something, because, people don't know what that is. They think like friggin' Hogwarts or something, who don't know anything about what I'm doing. I have a lot of people who think that my channel is about Lovecraft because they think of Catonia, they think of Cthulhu, right? I'm like, no, it's not, it's kind of funny, but that's not about Lovecraft. So, and a lot of people think that, so it's not like, they just haven't seen it, they just think, they see the CHT and they're like, oh, Cthulhu, like that's their first thought. So it's very much, because I want it to be something that if you could theoretically put it on a CV, like if you had a psychology background or a psychoanalytic background or something where you could say, yes, I've also, examined these kinds of symbol systems with academic professionals. Like it's something that you could put, it's not an accreditation, but it is something that you could use, just in the same way if you took a Udemy course with somebody who was an expert, for example. And you get a certificate and you can say, yeah, I took this course. So, and also then you also have a creative piece of work at the end that you can choose to do something with or not. Something you can publish, it's something you can perform, or it's something you can keep it for yourself. It doesn't really matter. That would be totally up to the student, but I want people to come out of it with something creative. So anyway, I'm spending a lot of time talking about this school. I'm going to talk about it on the other channel too, next week when I go back to live streaming. But okay. So, my stomach, had something to say about that. So, okay. So the other topic I was going to talk about today, this one is a little personal, I guess. I wasn't sure, but I got it has to do with my Azrael messages, okay? Because I've been working much more heavily with the archangels recently, and initially it was like, okay, so people who have known me and my work for a long time know that I have been, I was always kind of like more on the witchy side of things, right? I've always been, and it's not that I'm kind of not. I've been involved with Hinduism, particularly Tantric Hinduism, which is about embracing the whole. It's not about, it's not based a lot on purification. It's based on the idea that every aspect of your life has a place. Everything is, the word means weave. It's like you weave together all the elements, both the painful ones and the pleasurable ones, both the ones that people consider pure and the ones that people consider polluted. Like it all has a place. So that's really, when I say I practice Tantra, that's what I mean, okay? It's not about like sex rituals and getting drunk and doing drugs. It's not about any of that stuff which Tantra tends to be associated with. And often, I'm not saying that sex practices are not part of certain aspects of Tantra, but that's not what we're talking about here. So, and of course, a lot of it's about Kundalini activation too, but that I will always tell people that should be done through a guru. And I know I don't like the almighty should, but I just feel that I personally, as somebody speaking to the public, would not advise you to go out and try to figure out how to do that on your own, because that can be very, very dangerous without the proper support. And again, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means that you need the right It's not just some fun empowerment thing. I mean, your Shakti is way more powerful than you give it credit, than most of us give it credit for. So, and people who don't do it correctly can injure themselves. So that's why I say it with that caveat. Okay, so the angel stuff started coming in more towards the end of this year. And previously, if you had asked anybody, I was just like, yeah, okay, angels, that's somebody else's bag. That has nothing to do with me. I'm not, I mean, I remember the first time I met Ellen Jones and she did a reading for me in Canterbury. She says, well, I can do a goddess reading or an angel reading. And I'm like, goddess reading. Just kind of was not interested in the angelic stuff. But, okay, so the other thing I'm going to tell you real quick, because it's going to be relevant to what I'm talking about here, is my own astrological chart. I have a placement in the 12th house. My 12th house is quite full, okay? And people who know 12th house is Pisces, that's the house of what they call self-undoing, but it's also the house of liberation. And foreign travel and a whole bunch of other stuff, especially if you look into the Vedic. It can also be where we have doubts. It can be where we keep things about ourselves that are hidden. And the first time I ever had a chart done was in the year 2000, and it was with a woman called Estelle. I don't know if she wants me to give her last name at this point, because I don't think she does readings anymore, but she was a clinical psychologist, and she had decided to go into astrology. And she had done, she gave it to me for free because I was sponsoring a program for her at the Roxbury Library, and she was giving a program on her thing. And so she was like, so I told her, I said, oh, I want to get in, because she was offering a free reading as a drawing for a free reading. And I said, oh, I want to get on that drawing. She goes, no, I'm just going to do it for you. She goes, I don't know. She goes, my voice keeps telling me, do it for her. So she did it for me. And I think she's since gone back into clinical practice that's gotten quite full. So she says, yeah, she goes, I haven't had time to do it. Because I did call her one time several years later. She's like, oh my God, it's so good to hear from you. She goes, well, she says, yeah, it was a thing. She goes, I'm not really doing it anymore. Because somebody was looking for a recommendation for an astrologer. I think that's why I called her. So anyway, so she was, what she had said to me, I remember this very clearly, is she said, okay, she says, you've got three things going on here. She says, you've got this grand fire trine. She says, you have a mystical rectangle and you have a yod aspect. She says, the way your 12th house is stacked up, she's like, there's something about you and your soul that you're not seeing. She says, first of all, your soul isn't, we all talk about soul origins. Soul origins can be from different places. But she says, your soul origin is not human. Okay. And there's probably a lot of people who that would be the case for. Not all of us came from this planet or started here or even from this just dimension or realm, So I didn't start in this dimension or realm on the earthly one. Okay. That's what Estelle had said. And she said, there's something here. She goes, all I'm going to tell you is that all of these are master aspects. She says, but don't think of yourself as like the message is not like, oh, I'm some great master. And by the way, I don't think that. Okay. But that's the way the aspects looked to her. She says, but whatever it is, it's hidden. She says, now 12th house Saturn, she says, you got to watch out for that. She says, because she goes, I don't know. She says, you spent time in an asylum somewhere. Like that is, and she's not the only one who said it to me. I've talked to people in OTO and different places, and they're like, yeah, that's like an aspect that shows that there was some, something like that would have happened in the past. Okay. Now, I've done Akashic readings with people. So when you do the Akashic, the idea is that you are going into the soul records. You're trying to figure out where things are. And literally that particular piece about, I've been kind of pointed to things that have happened in different lifetimes. And the one kind of vague message that comes through was just that, okay, you did something, somebody else was like threatened by you. And as a result, you ended up in a place where you didn't belong. Like, in other words, you had either a power or an ability or something that freaked somebody out, and you kind of got put into a really horrible place. But the details of it literally would say, we are not going to share the details of that with you. Okay? So that's what I kept getting, Okay. So this is just some backdrop to what I'm about to say. So, I was doing my Azrael messages the other morning, and he came through, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. I have my big book, Azrael messages, that I've written down on the floor, because I was working on it this morning. Maybe I can grab it if you give me a second here. Okay. Oh, God. I want to quote exactly what he said. I don't want to misquote or misremember. Let's see. It has to have been in the last couple of days. Yes, okay, here it is. The words he said were, I can never say this word, Iusos gra si kokaspa, okay, which means basically, something about they keep the mercies of the moon for 4 ages. It's something like that. And what he meant by that was that, he said, it's that they, the keepers of the records, have mercifully, the moon kind of means obscured, okay? We think about it as obscured. They have mercifully obscured something from you for 4 ages, okay? Or something of 4 ages. And I'm like, okay. And then basically what he said was, because he'd also said something about prepare yourself for the full moon. I think I even talked about this. He said something about the full moon, to be prepared for the full moon. Whatever comes up, you need to address with the violet flame, okay? And I was like, okay. So piecing all of this together, and some subsequent messages that were coming through. Basically, what I'm going to see on the full moon has to do, okay, because apparently this 12th house Saturn asylum thing came in this non-human incarnation. Because, he's told me to be very circumspect about what I tell people about it here, because he doesn't want to say what realm, what type of, just that something happened, because the figure that's responsible is a figure that, like, if I said the name, you would know the name. And it was a figure who kind of came into this realm, not originally from that realm, who was given some kind of authority and became whatever the female energies were that were there, which I was one, became very oppressive towards those energies. In other words, those energies had to submit. If those energies were warrior energies, they had to be like locked down. Like they were like, it was like, no, that's not you, that's not your role. It was like this energy that had come in, and it was kind of promoted to this level, but still had this kind of very split human understanding of masculine, feminine, and of the way those energies work in other realms. And apparently whatever this energy did was something grossly unfair to pretty much all of the feminine in that realm. But the only person might not have been the word, the only energy that stood up to that was mine. And as a result, he said, I was talking to my friend Jenny about this the other day, and because she does Akashic, and when I was starting to tell her, she says, oh yeah, she says, she goes, when you think about old school asylums that are very barbaric, she says, but if you also think about the kinds of torture that people do, like you talk about waterboarding, or you talk about Chinese water torture, all these things, she goes, all I'm getting is, all that stuff is a cakewalk compared to whatever went on there. And eventually it took, because again, this is another realm, and time runs differently, it was 400 years. And eventually I got out of that space and came here. And because I've been told that's why you have an attachment to the earth, because you're like, yeah, I like it here, F you other people, it was just kind of like that kind of an energy. And so there's been, and the early incarnations, apparently, that they said were more of you being more connected to the church and connected to something that was more rigid, because you were just coming out of this other space where that was probably like thrown in your face to some degree. Not necessarily about that, but that type of very rigid masculine dominated thinking. And it's taken a long time for me to kind of come out of that. But basically it came that I was just, when it came to those realms, I was just like, no, fuck off. Like I shouldn't say that on a live stream, right? But I was just like, no, go away. I don't want anything to do with it. And and they said, so basically what they're saying is like, yeah, we that was hidden from you for a long time. Even when I've actively done regression work or soul work, it's like, no, we're not going to show you. That's just too bad. You can't look at it. Well, now apparently they're saying, well, with this full moon, you're going to look at it. You're going to look at it because you have to. because it's getting to a point now where whatever that conflict was, it needs to be resolved. It's like the last thing holding me back from whatever it is that, well, again, I don't know if I should talk a lot about what that is meant to be. I'm not even sure I fully know what it is, I guess, to be fair. So yeah, this has just been kind of like a weird thing for me to absorb, especially with the name that was given to me. Now, it's interesting because, and what's interesting about it to me is that this particular message makes a lot of other stuff that I've done over the years, and a lot of the astrology charts, a lot of the readings I've had, a lot of stuff, it's kind of click, 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 click into place. For example, they're saying, yeah, you're not, like, the reason I shouldn't have gotten married in the first place, and the reason that I'm not remarried yet is because, well, the person you remarry has to have a similar soul type to yours. Like, when you marry somebody else, you're not going to understand each other. The other thing was, the fiction that I write. Okay, now I write some fiction that some people are like, okay, some of this is just really kind of ghastly. And it's interesting because at least one of the stories that came up during the July full moon last year was one of a male figure who was very beautiful and who actually seems very benevolent, very rescuing, very benevolent. And by the way, just to be clear, I'm not talking about like Jesus or Yahweh or anything like that. I don't want people to think I'm not talking about a god, okay, or a god figure. So just to be clear about that. But this particular figure was like a picture of like benevolence. But in the story, when it comes to somebody who he feels threatened by, his attack on the person is so vile and so vicious that it's literally almost like, I don't even know if I can write this down. Now, of course, by the way, I don't think it's a reflection on the experience I actually would have had. But it points to the fact of somebody who appears to be I talk about this a lot. I talk about it with the Apollo, and I talk about it, it's funny, I'm playing a D&D game right now where the main god is exactly like this. And it's just the idea that there's, as Carl Jung says, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. So in other words, it's like this being that's supposed to be a very bright light, but in fact has a very, very, because of their human origin, and the human origin just means that they have a split consciousness, they can't accede to the fact that the way that they're looking at things is wrong. Yes, indeed, yes. And in these other realms, that consciousness is not split. Okay, so this has kind of caused a lot of havoc. And not just for me, by the way. I'm not the only person who suffered, but I'm the only person who suffered because of that. But I'm certainly not the only person who was like oppressed in this situation. So anyway, that's the messages that came through. And so I don't know what next Saturday is going to look like. I am doing the Chiron class next Saturday, so we are doing that. So it ought to be interesting if this is something that comes up in the midst of that. And I don't know. So I said Azrael, I said to him, I said, well, is this something I should be worried about, or is this something I should be happy about? He's like, kind of both. He's like, he says, because the good thing is that once it's addressed, and once this thing is addressed, I have to inbox you some questions on that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, yeah, so, it's one of those things that it's like, this is something that has to be cleared, because they don't want me to be at whatever that realm is, and there is a connection there to the angelic realm, which is why this comes in. It's like, yeah, don't, you don't want to be at, you don't need to be basically giving the middle finger to that realm, because because the situation that was there is not there, and you need to be working with these energies. You need to not be in opposition to them. So there's that. But I think it's weird that all of my fiction, I'm always like, why am I writing this, and why is it even important that I'm writing this? You know what I mean? Not that everything has to be, as I've said, important. But apparently it's kind of dancing around that, because you often have these figures who are, again, who appear to be one thing that's very pure and innocent and golden, but are actually very, very malevolent. And so that's my conception of it. but the other piece of it was, yeah, and there was some other things too. I also actually asked him too. I said, do the angels, at least, okay, if you read the Bible, all the angels are sons of El. Like, of course, that's a very Canaanite thing, but they basically, it's assumed that they are, the angels or the kind of the servants or the army or whatever of Yahweh. And I've been told multiple times, no. Yahweh is a deity that is connected, but that's not the main boss, not the main driver, is not Yahweh. So I said, well, who is the main driver? Who is he? He says, oh, you mean who is she? So yeah, there's a feminine energy at the center of it, and he said, but that feminine energy is removed. So unless it's specifically called in, it is almost like with the Hindu idea of Lalita. It's like that's an energy that's called in, and when it does, then that energy manifests and does what it needs to do to right the balance. But otherwise, it's not necessarily, just like it's not necessarily, it's there, but it's not, it's there, but it's not necessarily manifest as a being, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. So anyway, let's do our reading for today. But yeah, that was just, it's odd, and I do feel a little odd talking about it because I'm kind of like, it's not, I think for people who don't know about me and don't know about my journey or just know me as a very academic person, they might be kind of like, okay, that all sounds like really weird. But, but I don't know. But he says, no, you want to talk about it. And I think the main reason is because there's often an understanding of angels and the angelic realm as being like, oh, well, like if you're a pagan, for instance, you can't really, there are a lot of pagans who do dip into that realm, but they're looking at it from a very different perspective, and they may just be assuming, oh, well, this is all part of Judaism, or this is all part of, and he's saying, no, actually, that's just, and actually, that was the other thing, too. He said there's a lot of things that have been put out about angels, like the fall of angels. He said, that never happened. So that never happened. He said, that's a lie, that never happened. I was like, okay. But that's what he said. So like the books of Enoch and stuff like that, he said, no. He said, that's actually, he actually calls that like slander against angels. He said, no, it's not, that didn't happen. So again, you can take what you want. You can agree, disagree. I am, a friend of mine said once, I am Hermes. I bring you the message. So anyway. Yeah, so let's look at our message for today. Was there anything else I was going to say about that? Yeah, it's just basically from what I'm learning about the angelic realm. Angels transcend time. Yes, they do. They're not in the same space. So actually, that's a good point, because when we're talking about the four ages, that turned out in human time, much like me. Yeah, we're all outside of time, right? Saturn's actually one of the is my chart ruler, is my nakshatra ruler. So unfortunately, I'm a little bit too aware of time here. But yeah, but it was, but yeah, and he said it was probably a space of 400 years, and whatever this being, whoever this being is, I know who it is who had, committed this act, said it took them 900 years to admit that they did something wrong. So yeah, it's interesting. So anyway, our key card here is fighting. Okay, we have the Knight of Clouds. So that's our central card today. Has to do with fighting. What has to do, and I don't know. Now, normally when I see the fighting card, I would think that it would say that you need to stop fighting with yourself. That may be part of it here. Don't fight with yourself. Don't let other people define you is kind of what's coming into my mind. Don't let other people define you, define who you are. We have turning in as what you're unaware of. So again, there's these other voices that are shouting at you, and you need to kind of figure out who you are without other people telling you who you are or what you're supposed to be. So this is about finding, internally, this is like, okay, trying to find your center and trying to find a truth. Okay. But with fighting, it's just kind of like, yeah, there's this energy, because what I kept getting with it, because initially when I was having, and again, I'm not saying this is about me. This is supposed to be a message for everybody here. But I still can't help but feeling that this topic is coming up, because sometimes we talk about, well, you shouldn't be fighting. But I think what this is saying is sometimes you actually do need to be fighting. And you need to be fighting for what's right for you, not what other people say you're supposed to be. And the external feeling of which we're aware, this is the Hierophant, okay? This is the nothingness card. So nothingness has to do with walking into a blank space, into an unknown. But the Hierophant also has to do with traditional energy. So I feel like when I look at these three cards together, it's the way in which whatever our version of tradition is, whatever space that we're in, there's kind of a fighting to figure out where you really are in that space. Because things that are outside of what our known structure is are maybe a blank space. They may be an unknown, okay? So that seems to be the thing. But again, there seems to be certainly in my case, there's a blank spot. There's an ignorance there about what that all means. But I think more generally speaking, this would just be that a lot of times when we're in a spot where we don't know, we either may fight to keep that script, or we may fight to maintain our own individuality in that script, or maintain our own authenticity is maybe a better way to put it. Now we have the World card here. So this is completion. This is a completion of a cycle. So in terms of my story, I think it's saying, yeah, you have a cycle that's about to come to an end here. That's why something's getting finished. But that said, I think given the astrology of the time, that all of us are finishing something. We're all doing things. We're dealing with the Chiron wounds and things like that because it's time for a lot of us to finish stuff up and move on. We're moving from 2025 is going to be moving into a space that's more fire and air dominated rather than earth and water. So this necessarily means that, okay, finish up whatever the lessons were here because now you're going to be moving into a new space. And the ultimate outcome, we have another 10 here. Yeah, we've got a completion card and we've got a 10. We've got the 10 of Wands. We've got suppression, okay? Suppressing who you are. Or suppressing rage in some cases, or very, very strong emotions. It's interesting because the readings I've been doing today for Aries through, I did Aries through Cancer so far. No, sorry, Aries through Gemini. I'm doing Cancer today for my channel. There's a lot of fire in the 12th house, which is like suppressed rage. So, or just suppressed strong emotion, if not actually rage. So there's this idea that, yeah, there needs to be an outlet for anything. And actually, I just even feel like with fighting at the center, that sometimes that involves us fighting. That involves us taking something on head on rather than sidestepping it. Now, that doesn't mean getting violent with people, like literally or anything like that. But it does mean that we need to find, because suppression, the meaning of this card is just like, look, whatever it is inside of you, you've got to find a way to get it out. Like for me, I think also the writing and stuff has been a way to work with that energy and with that the suppression of voice too. I find that that's a topic that's come up for me a lot this year, is the suppression of voice. So it's like being able to speak up for yourself and being able to speak your truth without being seen as a threat, without being punished. And this is something, if we just go back to the whole dark feminine theme that I actually work in, that's kind of the thing. Because that's always been the question of Catonia, which is why is the authentic, more warrior, more sovereign feminine voice something that's a threat to society? That's the fundamental question of Catonia. And it seems, I guess what the message I was getting, yeah, it seems to be informed by whatever this was in connection to my soul. So that's just where my personal motivation is. But I think this is something, it's because there's an idea about when you have this split mentality that the masculine is dominant and the feminine is supposed to be passive or submissive. And they're saying, well, no, that's actually not the case at all. They're dynamic, they work together, and the feminine is actually the kind of root of the consciousness or the power. And I've said that many times in my podcasts where I've said, like, look, the feminine, like men embracing their feminine means that that actually makes a man much stronger. And it's not just about being vulnerable and kissy-kissy and love. It's just about, no, Shakti power is very powerful. If you read the Hindu epics, the Shakti is the ones who go out and they fight. They're the warriors. Okay? So there's a strong warrior energy connected with this. Like, it's like, no, there's the female. But that can't, you can't be like, well, no, women can't be that way. That's not proper. There's an idea about the feminine, and if somebody says that a man embraces the feminine, they get pushed back from other men. Oh, you're not going to be some, and there's all kinds of pejorative terms that they will use for a man who who's kind of weak because they're feminine. And it's like, no, actually a man who is feminine is very, very strong. A man who embraces their femininity. And they have a tremendous amount of strength. And because to be feminine is just simply to be open, to be human, to be receptive to all information that's coming in, not just putting the blinders on and what you see with your eyes and what your mind decodes in front of you in this way. That's very, very simplistic. We think about Athena and Ares in Greek mythology. Now when the two of them have to fight with each other, because they're both actually deities of war. Ares is known as the god of war. Athena is known as, she's a goddess of a lot of different things. She has to do with a lot of domestic stuff too, interestingly enough, like crafts and weaving and stuff like that, speaking of weaving. But the thing is, she's also deals in war. But her, as a goddess of war, she's a goddess of strategy. Okay, so she's the way in which one is clever. She's not the direct frontal assault. She's more like guerrilla warfare. Like, okay, you go over here and do this, and then you tell this one, and then she's a little bit more tricky and a little more deceptive in that way. But strategy, a lot, rather than just brute the machine marching forward with no thought, which is more the energy of Ares, to just go in and be a killing machine. Athena's more like, no, strategize about it. And of course, in the Iliad, when the gods start fighting with each other, she goes head to head with Ares and she beats the living what out of him. And then of course he goes and complains to Zeus, and Zeus is just like, I hate you, go away. Literally. He pretty much says to Ares, he says, if you weren't my son, he says, I'd throw you in Tartarus. So it's very much because it's that brute killing force that has no conscience and no regard, really. Or it's very arrogant. But a lot of people feel like that is what masculinity is supposed to be. And it's like, no. What the Greek myths will show us is that, no, when Athena's help is rejected, that's when the warriors go completely off the rails and terrible things happen to them. Because in the same way, like an Irish myth, that Morrigan, if you don't embrace, when the Cuchulainn and the ones who just say, I don't need you, woman, go away, they don't meet good ends, okay? Because the female is strategizing and eventually they put them in a bind that they can't get out of. So, it's just, it's the proper, finding the proper place for that energy. But for this is basically saying that sometimes, suppression means that we need to let things out, that we need to kind of fight things out in order to kind of figure out where we are. And but again, when I say fighting, I don't mean literally going out and punching someone. I mean, just there needs to be sometimes there's things that need to be brought out into the open in order to clear the air. So anyway, and this is a bit of an odd live stream today, but so anyway, if you have thoughts, definitely message me on that. But it's but that was something that for some reason wanted me to say today, so I'm saying it. Azrael said some other things. I'm probably going to do another formal channeling to post soon. So thank you. So we will see what comes of all that, and if there's anything that comes out of it that I feel is share worthy or whatever, then of course I will share it. Because obviously, if it's something that I've been asked to share, then it doesn't just have to do with, it may be about my stuff, but there may be an aspect of it that has to do with other people as well. So, or maybe just some kind of reflection, because I think this is an idea that I'm seeing, certainly in a lot of women who have suffered certain types of traumas and things, or even men too, let's be fair. I mean, men, I think, also suffer because of the way that we approach femininity. So it's really, trying to keep that balance. So anyway, it's past. I am going to start switching these live streams, I think, after the 17th. Like, as of the 18th, I'm going to start switching them to 7 a.m. Because, I think now it's getting light around 6:04, 6:05 in the morning. So by then, it's probably going to be just getting to be light. So I think I would rather start moving it towards and actually in the winter, I'm probably going to have to make it even later because I know the sun doesn't come up till about 7:30. So we'll have to figure that out as we go. But for now, I think I may do my my fall hours, we'll call them, for morning coffee. We'll start that on the 18th, but for now we'll keep it at this. So thanks so much for joining me today. And, you know, if you're watching this later, thank you so much for watching. And, yeah, I'll be here tomorrow. So have a great Sunday. Take care.